The Glee Off by Mrs. Spigener. Lillian Picklebarrel was no ordinary teacher. She loved teaching and teaching differently. She always thought of her classroom as a jungle, one that could be tamed when necessary, but why tame it? She loved letting her students run wild with their imaginations. Never once did she think that all those little, wild imaginations could ever dream up one of her favorite teaching moments ever. It all started one rainy January day. It's too wet outside, boys and girls, so it looks like it'll be an inside recess kind of day. There were moans and groans before the students settled into their normal spots. A bright young student named Mo approached Mrs. Picklebarrel to ask, "Mrs. Peavy, can I write a song and get a group to sing it to the class?" The thought was enticing to Lillian, so she answered with, "As long as it is appropriate and about our school, I can't wait to approve your lyrics." He gave her one of the biggest grins and got to work. The rest of the week was an inside recess kind of week. Mo inspired other kids to do the same. The next thing Lillian knew, she had 4 different groups wanting to give it a try. From that week on, the kids begged to work on their songs and came up with official names for their groups. The more they worked, the more excited they became. Knowing her curriculum, Lillian ran with it and decided that this was poetry at its finest. Before and after school, every day those groups wrote, sang, and danced. Life lessons were learned and memories were made. They laughed, they cried, they went to the moon and back, working through disagreements and making compromises. After all the hard work they put into it, Lillian wanted to make it even more special for them. They started to call this time their Glee Off time. Once a day in the middle of it all, Lillian asked, "How would y'all feel about performing not just for our class, but for other classes too?" Their eyes lit up with excitement and the call was made. Practice performances were held and other classes were invited. "It is always good to get feedback from your audiences," Mrs. Peavy said after each practice. "Can we get some stars and wishes?" Each class gave feedback that was helpful and good to hear. It was obvious that performing for others was telling. Groups kept switching their plan and lyrics, and as a result, they didn't feel prepared to perform for other classes. "Take your lyrics home, finish them up for homework," explained Mrs. Peavy. The next day, several kids brought back typed lyrics. Lillian thought to herself, "Thank you, parents!" After that, Mrs. Peavy felt inspired by her kids to face her own fears, inviting more people, especially parents, to come into the classroom to see all the hard work they have helped with. After all, if they can face their fears, so can I, she thought. As a class, they advertised their Glee Off in different ways. A trailer and invitations were made. Parents were finally coming to see what a Glee Off was. The day before the big performance, Mrs. Peavy's kids were excited but nervous all over again. She was excited and nervous too. The stage was set and outfits were picked. The performance was tomorrow, and all that was given for homework that evening was a good night's rest. The Glee Off was here! The kids were like shooting stars each time they practiced. Everyone pitched in to get the classroom ready for the parents and other classes that were scheduled to come that day. The performance was a hit, so much so that there has been multiple requests for an encore performance, or 5. As the day wrapped up, the kids said it best to Mrs. Peavy and their parents. This wasn't about winning, it was about having fun. So speaking from the mind of Lillian Picklebarrel, I encourage you to face your fears and don't be afraid to be different. Get your classroom back and find your passion for teaching again. Go off into the wild and have fun. Let your children lead you. You never know where you might end up.